Hi everyone, welcome to YTT, a life-changing journey. This is a panel info session to chat about our upcoming fall yoga teacher training that's happening this September 2024. So let's do some introductions first. I'll introduce myself. My name is Ashley. I am the founder of Collective Studios. I am a 200-hour certified yoga instructor, and I also hold certifications in a bunch of other wellness and fitness modalities.
My name's Shayna. I'm the senior yoga instructor here at the studio. I'm an experienced 500-hour registered yoga teacher at the studio, and I'm also leading the YTT.
Hi everybody, my name is Julia Wansell. I am a recent YTT grad at the Collective, and I am a yoga teacher on Sundays at 8 a.m.
Hi everyone, I'm Kayla DiGentomaso. I'm a recent YTT 2023 grad, and I've been a collective member since 2021, I believe.
Cool. Thank you. So let's dive right into it. I want to make sure I can keep us mostly on time. So first question, and we'll have Kayla start, is what were your motivations and goals for signing up for YTT? What made you interested in enrolling?
I think for me, I was just interested in learning more about my own physical practice and also about myself. I honestly didn't know what to expect at the time, and I was kind of like, let's try something new. So I ended up signing up really last minute. I think it was 2 weeks before I had talked to Shayna. I was like, why not? Here we are.
Thank you. Julia?
So I started practicing yoga like 10 years ago and was always had it in the back of my mind of thinking about teaching yoga. I'm a kindergarten teacher and I love yoga. I'm a kindergarten teacher and I love yoga, so I thought maybe kind of marry both of them. So it's always interesting to me, but finding the Collective Studios, I just knew that this was the right studio for me to do my YTT at, because it was just a studio that inspired me and just made me really feel excited. So I just knew it was the right place for me and I took the dive.
So I was already teaching bar and an ACE group fitness instructor at the time, and I owned a bar and yoga studio, and being a yoga teacher was my path. So when I owned the studio, I was like, this is the right time for me. I need to get somebody in here to do a yoga teacher training, and that's how I became a yoga teacher.
Thank you. So I'll share a little bit about my story. I did a yoga teacher training in 2017. I had no intentions of teaching whatsoever. I just knew that every time I stepped onto my mat, I felt like the best version of myself. At the time, I was also navigating a lot of sort of like negative body image and body dysmorphia, and it was really difficult for me to overcome. And I found that every time I got onto my mat, those thoughts finally released out of my head. So I wanted to continue to pursue that. And so something inside me said, sign up for yoga teacher training, and I did. Fast forward, gosh, how many years is that now? 7 years. Like I said, I had no intentions of opening or owning a studio. I didn't even teach after I graduated YTT. I waited maybe like a year and a half and then started teaching on the beach in San Diego, as you do if you live in San Diego. And then had the idea to open the studio and move back and pursued that. So let's start with Julia on this one. What part of YTT did you enjoy the most?
Oh, that's a tough question. I mean, the whole experience was amazing, but for me, I think I loved making friends. It's so incredible when you're an adult to find friends that have similar interests and experiences and just want to nerd out about the same things that you want to talk about. I just found lifelong friends, and that was amazing. So I loved friendships. Also, really just learning more about myself was probably my second favorite experience. Learning a lot about how to be vulnerable. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, or recovering perfectionist, I should say, and YTT helped me let go of a lot of that, just learning to make mistakes and enjoy the process. Yeah, just friendships and vulnerability, my two biggest takeaways.
I think for me, my biggest takeaway was just building my own confidence. I remember walking into YTT the first weekend and we were queuing poses for the first time and I was really scared. And then I think just seeing everything come to fruition at the end and really seeing myself build my own confidence. Then also just meeting a lot of new people, as Julia was talking about before, and just having those lifelong connections. It's a group of people that know things about you sometimes before you even do it about yourself.
This is a loaded question because I have many things for this. But I think just the connections I made during my YTT is probably my favorite thing. But I think looking back too, it's just expanding as a teacher as well for me at the time, because what I was teaching from bar to hit and things like that's completely different from being a yoga teacher. So I think just that expansion and the connections that I made during.
For me, I think my favorite part about YTT, or what I enjoyed the most, was the way it shifted my perspective and the way that I viewed my ability to navigate the world. I've shared about this before, but when I was going through YTT, I had a corporate job that I really did not enjoy, and it really made me miserable. And through the process of going through YTT, I learned that I'm completely in control of my life. I think that YTT gives you this understanding of both knowing that you are in control of your destiny and simultaneously being able to let go of control as well. So for me, it was that understanding that you are the creator of your own reality. And once that kind of thought lands in your mind, as it does when you go through YTT, you're never going to be able to move through the world the same again. Sheena, what was your biggest takeaway or learning from YTT?
That you are never going to be the same teacher afterwards. So my YTT lead taught me that you're going to always continue to be a student forever. And I think at the time I was like, okay, like I'm going to keep always learning, sure. But looking back now, all these years later, every year I'm a different teacher. Every year I'm learning something new. And I really enjoy that part of it, so.
I think before YTT, yoga for me was a little bit more superficial. It was something to step on my mat, to maybe look a certain way, feel a certain way. But YTT really dives in to a deeper perspective of the history of yoga, the deep roots of yoga. It helped me open up my spiritual lens. And also, I feel like I have a deeper appreciation for what yoga is now. Every time I get on my mat now, I feel so much more appreciation for the teachers and all that goes into it. So it's just a really opened my mind to appreciating the art and the history of yoga and all that it is.
I was really surprised how much just yoga encompasses your whole life as well, and that was super eye-opening for me during the journey. When I had signed up, it was just really about the physical practice, and then I learned there was so much more to it. And it's just a magical experience, I would say.
I love that, and I'm gonna mirror that as well. I think that like I don't physically step on my mat as much as I did back then, or as much as I did maybe a few years ago, but yoga is a lifelong practice, and it's honestly a way of just existing. Like I said before, it will shift your perspective and you will carry yoga with you all the time. And I personally think, and I think you would all agree too, that the best part of yoga is like it's your oldest friend. It doesn't get mad at you when you like go do other formats or like maybe fall out of your practice, your physical practice a little bit. It's always there for you. You always step back on your mat and it feels like returning home. At least it does for me. And so once you have that feeling, it's really difficult to escape it. It's really difficult to not have that relationship. It's called a practice for a reason. Julia, can you share how life or you have changed since graduating from YTT?
Yeah, so after YTT, I knew that I wanted to start teaching. And The best part is that when we wrapped up graduation, we got to do a community teach. So I had a little taste of what that would feel like as a yoga teacher. And I knew that I wanted to step into that. So I auditioned here and had the opportunity to join a lovely mentorship with Shayna, which led into teaching yoga on Sundays. And it's just been an absolutely incredible experience. I have loved the community here. Everyone's been so welcoming. And every time I step into the yoga room, I feel like I learn something a bit more about myself. Like I was saying earlier, it has also deepened my practice with yoga. I feel like I have a deeper understanding and appreciation for yoga on and off my mat. And it's just, I love that yoga holds me in whatever space that I'm feeling. It allows me to show up tired or unmotivated, and it's always there for me. And I don't think I had that perspective before YTT. So becoming a yoga teacher has truly been a wonderful experience, and I love it so much.
For me, I knew I didn't want to teach classes, but I feel like with that knowledge, it just allowed me the opportunity to learn more about myself. And I think I have a deeper appreciation for everything that's around me and the experiences that I'm allowing myself to have now, and just to stop and breathe. It's so big.
So for me, I feel like yoga can change with you as you change throughout life. So while I may have been into really physical practices back in the day, I found times where I couldn't do physical practices, living with lupus. So I've taken other parts of yoga that I've needed throughout those times. So I think throughout the years, not only do you grow into your yoga practice, but your yoga practice grows and changes for you as well. And just over the years, watching my personal practice, all the different ways I've used yoga in my life, whether it's practicing really actively and physically or spiritually, or more the yin side of yoga or the restorative side of yoga, yoga's always there with me and changing with me and growing with me throughout my journey. And as a teacher, it works the same way, whether you teach or not. You'll find that you can do the same thing as a teacher. Maybe you teach flow classes, maybe you never teach flow classes and you just do meditation-led classes. So it can be very personal to you and how you want it to be for you.
I love that answer. It's true. It really does evolve and ebb and flow with you. For me, so I started talking about this earlier, but yoga was really the catalyst and the first domino to fall in the journey that ultimately brought me to here. So I just shared about this on my Instagram as well, but it was my butterfly effect. If I hadn't signed up for yoga teacher training, I don't think I would have gained the confidence or the perspective to ultimately leave the corporate world and go off on my own and start working for myself. That then led me to gaining certifications in the fitness and wellness space. That then led me to becoming more sort of like engrossed in that world and building a bigger network within that space. And it wasn't until I started pursuing Reiki and I had my Reiki attunements that I got the download for opening the studio. Whether you're spiritual or not, I don't know, maybe that doesn't land with you, but it was basically the idea landed in my mind and that felt like my life's purpose. So packed up my life, moved back to the East Coast and started opening the studio. And now it's pulling up on 3 years. And I never even envisioned it to be like this. I always envisioned it just to be like a one-room yoga studio that offered yoga, sculpt, and yin. And obviously the idea has really spiraled from there. But I don't know, for me, yoga, like you just never know where a yoga teacher training is going to take you, and it might not come to fruition right away. It might be a few years until that whole chain of events starts to reveal itself to you. So for our last question, what is one piece of advice you would give to someone who is considering joining but is on the fence? Sorry.
If you're on the fence, you always just have to go for it anyway. So I'm all about taking the leap and just going for it. You're never going to know when you're truly ready for something. you just have to do it and see where you land, see where it takes you, and knowing in heart that wherever it does take you is where it's supposed to take you, where you're supposed to land.
I would definitely say just do it as well, but also I think as adults, we don't allow ourselves to be beginners at something often. And that is so important, to allow yourself to try something new and to fail, and don't let that fear of what if, am I good enough? Is my yoga practice good enough? Or don't let that hold you back, because the space of when you learn about yourself, when you're unsure or uncertain or maybe not the best in something, that's where the growth is at. And that's where the good stuff happens. So just lean into it.
I'm sticking with the theme of just do it. If the thought crossed your mind, there is definitely a reason why that thought crossed your mind, and you just have to trust the journey and know nothing's gonna let you fail. You just have to allow the experiences to happen.
I will stick with the theme of just do it. And like I said, for me, that was the first time in my life that I followed an inkling to do something and it didn't fit into a plan. There was no plan or no rhyme or reason. I had no intentions of becoming an instructor, a studio owner, any of that. But again, like you said, you just don't know where that little thread is going to pull you to. So if you feel called to it, there is a reason why you are called to it, even if you don't see the big picture right now in this exact moment. So that's all we have. Do y'all have any questions? Anything that's on your mind? Go ahead. Let me give you the mic so you can speak into the mic, please.
What is something that you wish you knew before you started YTT that you could, like, if you could give yourself advice, what is one thing you'd do?
Yeah, so I gotta think about that. Sure, go ahead. Do yours, your mic.
Kind of leaning into what I said before, it's not always going to be linear and it's not always going to be easy. I remember thinking going in, it'd be fine and I just get it all down right away and I learn my sequence and get my cueing down and everything, but it's really not. And it's okay. And that is truly what I wish I could go back in time and just kind of pat myself on the head and say, it's okay, Julia, it's okay to be a beginner and you're gonna mess up, but it's gonna be great, and just lean into it. So just like having an open heart and yeah, just leaning into it.
I think just release any expectations that you have for yourself and just be really open to new ideas and learning from all the people around you.
I love your answer because if I could have slowed down and enjoyed the moment a little bit more, but at the time back then I did own a studio, so like as you probably know, there was like zero amount of time that I think I was like fully present. I was trying to be and enjoy the learning the spiritual aspects and everything else, which was amazing. But at the same time, I was just like ready for the next, ready for the next, ready for the next. So I think just enjoying the moment while you're in it.
Yeah. What would I say to myself, or what advice would I give to myself back then? At the time when I went the yoga teacher training, I was very fixated on the physical practice. And I really ended up enjoying the spiritual and personal development more. So I wish back then I had leaned into that a lot more. I still have a pretty physical practice, but yeah, I think that that's like a really underrated side of yoga teacher training that people are, and this is like all yoga in general. I think like student, like anyone who comes to yoga class, majority of people come because they think they're like getting a good stretch or they're coming for a physical practice. Like some people might be evolved enough to come for like the personal reflection and quiet time, but I think the physical is definitely the gateway to the spiritual. So I wish I had leaned into that a little bit more at that time. Thank you. Haley, any questions from you on Zoom? Okay.
I really appreciate like all the stories and stuff that you guys have shared, but any insight into the flow of the program and kind of how the day-to-day being in YTT looks like would be great.
Yeah, that's a good question, Shannon. How do you answer that?
Yeah, so we have 10 intensive weekends this year. It's gonna be Fridays from 4 to 8, Saturdays from 1 to 8, and Sundays 12 to 8. And then there's also some Zoom dates set up in there as well, which are going to be Tuesdays. I think it's one Tuesday a month.
Yeah, one Tuesday a month, September, October, November, December, 6 to 8 p.m. But then as far as like the breakout of your actual days, like what does a sample day look like?
So a sample day is really broken up into, so it's not just, I think sometimes people think it's like, you know, an 8-hour day of just straight physical yoga. It's not, I would never do that to you. So it might be like an hour practice of yoga and then a break, like a 15-minute break. And then we'll come back and we'll do maybe some anatomy and physiology for a little while. Then we'll do some practice within small groups. Maybe we'll take another break after that. Then we'll come back and maybe do some business breakdown or some meditation. So everything's broken up so you're not just completely sitting still all day. You have moments of movement, you have breaks, you have a dinner time set. So there's plenty of time for that throughout the day, and everything is broken up so that it's not like straight anatomy and physiology for one whole weekend. Like it's broken up throughout the weekends. So it's done very thoughtfully.
Yeah, and I'll add to that each day has a variety of lecture topics. You'll have taking class, practice teaching class, round robin practicing in small groups. Like she said, you have meal breaks, bathroom breaks, lunches, dinners. If you have the handout, and we can send it to you if you don't, but basically the curriculum follows the yoga asanas, which is the physical practice, the postures, pranayama, which is breath. I'll asterisk that by saying there's also meditation practice as well too. Yoga sutras, history of yoga, anatomy, chakras, theming, and sequencing, and then there's electives that are worked into it as well. So like last year we did a sound bath. What else did you do?
Did yin, restorative yoga. So getting into just the different types of yoga. There is some reading that we do along with the curriculum, which is sort of like a broken down into chapters, but it's a short reading, the book in general. And a little bit of reflection questions to go with it. Aside from that, there's no other homework on top of it. Let's see, we did the sound bath elective.
And we usually try to be thoughtful about, like a sound bath will get scheduled on like a Sunday night when you've been like immersed in YTT all weekend. And so it's like a nice way to just like wrap up the weekend and like feel cozy and go home and rest. The book that you do is the book that you group read together is usually focused on something on like spirituality or self-reflection. There's something else I was going to say too.
We do a lot of meditation electives too. So each student will learn how to teach a guided meditation, and it's built up. So it begins in 5 minutes and then you build up to 10 and then
that's a good
nice slow
everything build. Teaching and anything you're teaching will like ramp up. You're not expected to come in day one and like lead a 30-minute meditation.
Yeah.
Anything you feel like we're missing?
Yeah. So when I was looking into programs, there's a lot of different types of YTT. You can do something that's stretched out in a whole year. You can do like a 2-week immersive where you can travel and just be immersed in YTT for 2 or 3 weeks. But I feel like the collectives program is the perfect amount of time because it's not all at once, but it's also not stretched so far that you lose the information. I felt like I had enough time to be immersed during the weekends, but then had time to digest the information and really put it into practice during observations or my own personal practice. So if you're looking for a certain timing, I just think this is so great for really digesting information at an appropriate time.
Yeah, I think that's a great add, so thank you for sharing that. I think what's important too is when you're looking at YTT programs, you do want to look at their curriculum and to see some programs will prioritize yoga asana like much more than everything else, and some will focus on like a lot more spirituality and not as much on yoga asana. Like I pride ourselves on our program does produce instructors, whether you want to instruct or not, which is in my opinion an important component of going through a yoga teacher training program. However, it is also balanced with all the other education that you receive as well. So I would say we're like a very equally balanced program. And as Julia added, you want to, in my opinion, you want to be immersed in it so it feels life-changing, but not overwhelming. Like you need to be able to integrate all of the change that's happening. And so having that bi-weekly or every other week weekend cadence of it, I think allows space for that as well too. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you so much.
I'll also add to our program is an official Yoga Alliance accredited program. Collective Studios is an official registered yoga school. So what that means is Yoga Alliance is sort of the national governing body that oversees the yoga industry and yoga schools. And in order to become a registered yoga school, you have to submit your manual, your schedule, and all of your stuff to Yoga Alliance, and they do a pretty fine-tooth read of everything and make sure it's like up to par with a program that is accrediting people. So like this isn't just something we strung together, it's like something that took like a year of planning, and the manual is like 500 pages, so yeah. Any other questions? Anything? Go ahead, pass the mic to her, please.
I was gonna ask you about that alliance or that certification organization as far as like, so you start out with 200 hours and then from there, that accreditation will, like you can use your certificate is good for ever, like with the
You can answer that.
to maybe Ed.
Yeah, so what happens after YTT is you get a 200-hour certificate. So you're a certified yoga teacher, and it's up to you if you want to become registered, which you would do through the Yoga Alliance, which is the recommended route, in my opinion, anyway, because a lot of places do want you to be registered through the Yoga Alliance, so you would do that through them. So that starts with your 200-hour, and if you wanted to become more after that, depending on how many hours you're teaching, you can become an E-RYT, which means experienced registered yoga teacher. That's like, I believe 1,000 hours. Yeah,
Meaning you taught 1,000 hours. You gained your 200, you taught, you gained your 200, and then you teach 1,000 hours, and that gives you the extra designation of E-RYT, which is experienced. And then in order to maintain your registered status, there's continuing education credits that you need to complete. I don't remember what the cadence is.
I believe it's every 3 years that you have to stick with that. But then after that, if you want to continue to grow, you can do a 300-hour training to be a 500. So the 300-hour you do in addition to a 200 is what gets you a 500-hour designation. Some people choose to skip the 200 and just go right to a 500. I like the idea of doing a 200 because then you can kind of see where you want to go and what you want to do with it, and then maybe stay there and like enjoy that for a while. You don't ever have to do more than that. So you can stick with that. There aren't usually places that require you to be 500 versus 200, but it's just a matter of where you want to go with it. Especially if you do want to become like a Yoga Alliance continuing education provider, which is what I have, and that's how I can lead a YTT. So you have to have that in order to continue to grow and lead more like continuing education workshops and classes to give people their CECs. And then at that time, you can become a 500-hour registered yoga teacher. And then once you have 2,000 plus hours of teaching under your belt, you get your E-RYT 500. So experienced.
Yeah. And then the CECs, the continuing education credits, are, you can do things like a yin workshop, which is like 10 hours, like I did a yoga sculpt training, which is 50 hours, like things like that. You just like add them into the portal and it tallies up that you're like working towards maintaining your status, basically. Yeah, that was a good question though. Anything else? Any other questions? Let's see, what time is it? Okay. Let's see, I did have a couple come through online, so I will read some of these out. I know that we are right at time, so I'll keep it pretty tight. One question that came up was, do I have to be good at yoga to join? Let me grab the mic.
I would say no, I felt really unsure about that, but even after completing YTT, there's still poses that I'm working to attain right now, and I just know it's gonna come with time and it's gonna happen when it happens.
I think knowing how to perform yoga in any type of body is really important as a yoga teacher, and also even if you can't do all the postures, you'll learn how to modify, which is maybe more important than nailing everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I would second exactly what you just said. So you don't have to be good at it. You don't have to be good at teaching. And just to kind of piggyback off that, part of graduating the program, you just have to complete the hours. Graduating, being good at yoga isn't a requirement to graduate and become 200 hours.
Wow, you're just so good. She's graduating.
It's not hours. You don't have to, that's not part of it. So, I mean, even coming out, you don't have to be able to do all these crazy poses and you don't even have to ever want to do a headstand like when you finish yoga teacher training. So it's not about that.
And then I'll just pick one more question that I feel like is important. A lot of people ask this is, the question was, I'm worried about balancing multiple commitments with YTT and life. So that's understandable. Can you speak to how other students have handled that in the past? So both of you had full-time jobs when you went through it. So do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, you just make it work, honestly. I spoke with Shayna beforehand if I had, a few commitments, and she was really willing to work with me and, do any makeup work. But I think the program works really well for a full-time job because it's during the weekends, it's after work on a Friday, it's late into the evening, and yeah, you just make it work and it's worth it.
For me, I want to run a 24/7 group home, so I'm on call all the time too, and I was even able to manage that. I think communication is really key though with the people I was working with. And then also just talking that out with Shayna was really helpful.
All right, I think that concludes it. So this video will be recorded and put up on our website, and it'll be able to be accessed if you want to reference it later. And then just a little tip that the early bird sale for yoga teacher training does end on the 30th, on June 30th. So if you're interested in signing up and you are able to pay full tuition, you would receive $300 off of signing up. Otherwise, we do have payment plans, and to reserve your spot, it's $1,000 deposit, and then payment dates after that to fulfill the tuition until before YTT starts. Otherwise, you're always welcome to email the studio, londonderry at thecollective-studios.com to get in touch with Shayna. She's happy to schedule any time to chat with you personally, to talk with you if this is the right journey or right time for you to be committing to a yoga teacher training. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining and for seeing us. We will chat with you soon. Bye.